rise of Maggie Rhee. The beginning of Maggie's role as a leader at the hilltop was not something that happened out of the blue. In fact, there's actually been a lot of foreshadowing and hints for her story, going back to season 5. When she came to Alexandria, she quickly took Diana's interest, who was the leader of Alexandria before she died. Maggie began to build on her leadership skills with Diana's help, who was a pretty decent leader, having been able to keep her community stable and safe for the most part. It even got to a point when Diana and Maggie were in meetings and discussions together, as if Maggie was, for a lack of a better word, Diana's vice president. Maggie took these directions to heart and used it to improve her leadership skills. Diana taught Maggie to not only be a considerate leader, but a negotiator. You can even pick up on this by studying Maggie's conversations with Rick during this process. Her conversations with Rick prior to meeting with Diana was more of a leader-to-follower type of conversation, which slowly morphed into a leader-to-leader type of discussion. Then once Rick and the others first visited the hilltop, Rick put her in charge of negotiating a deal with Gregory, the current leader of the hilltop. In fact, she had a major hand in the deal that the survivors made with the hilltop to deal with Negan and the Saviors. Also, Maggie's personality is more than just about making deals and being a high-level type of leader who doesn't really get her hands dirty. If we take a look at the 2 episodes in season 6, episode 12, Not Tomorrow Yet, and episode 13, The Same Boat, which dealt with the survivors' attack on one of Negan's outposts and Maggie and Carol being taken prisoner, we can clearly see that Maggie was anxiously trying to find an opportunity to join the fight despite her physical conditions, but was held back by Carol. And we saw that she was more than capable of fighting back and escaping by herself when she was taken prisoner, though their escape was pretty much a product of Carol being a badass. But regardless, she showed that she was smart and calculated in her actions and physically strong. Even at the moment of tragedy in season 7, episode 1, when she just witnessed Glenn, the love of her life, get beat to death with a baseball bat, she refused to bow down, to go under Negan's submission. She was the first one to stand up when everyone was on their knees, shocked from what they have just witnessed. And when she told Rick, we need to fight them, it wasn't so much of a proposal as it was a statement. It was only the safety and health of her and Glenn's baby that got her to cool down and accept to wait. There is even a subtle hint in the intro of season 7, episode 5. When we check back on Maggie after the tragedy, the episode opens with a close-up shot of Maggie, mirroring a close-up shot of Rick in the first episode. Rick's face in the opening scene of that episode represents a leader who is being completely annihilated, and the close-up of him at the end of the episode represents a leader who is submissive to the Saviors, while Maggie's face shows someone who has this fire in their eyes, someone who's eager to pass this phase, and she's ready to kill every one of the people who were a part of killing her husband. The way I see it is that it foreshadows a leader in the making. However, unlike the comics, it seems like Maggie is not a lone wolf at the hilltop. She's going through this journey with Sasha, who has gone through a lot of the same things she has. They have both lost the people close to them, but have thrived from their experiences. Sasha has lost Bob, Tyrese, and recently Abraham, while Maggie has lost her entire family, her sister Beth and her father Herschel as being the most predominant members of her family, and recently Glenn. However, they've both grew stronger by these experiences. There has also been clues of this duo back in season 5, episode 10. At that time, both Sasha and Maggie had recently lost one of their siblings. Sasha had recently lost Tyrese, while Maggie had recently lost Beth. They spent a good amount of time together at that time, healing and mourning the death of their family members. Then again in season 7, they are again going through the same thing. They're going through the same emotional healing process. We can see in their relationship that they care about each other and stick up for one another. When Gregory was pushing Maggie down and insulting her, Sasha was there for her. If it weren't for Maggie, she would probably beat Gregory for telling her that being pregnant was her problem or her fault. But this duo does nothing to put Maggie in charge at the hilltop. This is actually where Jesus comes into play. We can see that Jesus is slowly starting to lose hope in a stable community under Gregory's leadership. he actually has a very good relationship with both Maggie and Sasha and is unofficially looking at them as the saviors of the hilltop. Even in many instances, he stands up for Maggie and Sasha in front of Gregory. Jesus' presence actually gives confidence to Sasha and Maggie and gets them to discuss amongst themselves and with Jesus how they can deal with Gregory. Maggie realizes that Gregory's cowardice actions is dangerous. She does not tolerate a leader with that attitude. She doesn't want her baby to be born into a community that can crumble at any moment. So she wants to take things into her own hands. When the walkers attack the hilltop, Maggie is there, ordering the guards and Jesus what to do to take control of things, while Gregory is hiding in his room. But that's not all she does. Like I said before, she's not willing to just sit back. She gets the tractor and starts helping out and starts to kill these walkers. So even with her physical conditions, and given that she's not an official resident of the hilltop, she still wants to help the community. And then once the threat of the herd is gone, there is actually a subtle hint about Maggie's future role at the hilltop. During conversation between Maggie, Sasha, and Jesus, Jesus says, "I couldn't imagine anyone else in this place. I can now." And Sasha asks who, but Jesus replies by simply saying, "We'll talk about it sometime." And then at the end of season 7, episode 5, Maggie has enough confidence in her to punch Gregory in the face for his cowardice actions. So when Maggie demands Gregory to call her Maggie Rhee, that's not just a way to show that Maggie is carrying on Glenn's legacy. It's the birth of a new era in her character. The birth of Maggie Rhee, the leader of the hilltop. And then in season 7, episode 8, we start the episode with Maggie. Maggie is starting to feel at home at the hilltop. And from Gregory's conversation with Maggie, we realize how respected and loved Maggie is by the members of the hilltop. They even spoon-feed this to us by showing us Eduardo, the guard and the member of the hilltop, sticking up for Maggie and calling Gregory out for not giving Maggie the apple. And then later on in that episode, we see how much everyone at the hilltop really loves Maggie. They are actually making her food and trying to help her. And on the other side, Maggie is also there listening to the people and trying to find out what they need and trying to provide them with what they need. I think Enid put it best when she says Maggie for president, following it up with, "Are you already the president?" So I really feel like they have slowly built up Maggie's leadership at the hilltop. I definitely feel like the second half of season 7 is when we're really going to dive into getting some concrete evidence of how valuable Maggie is at the hilltop. And we're going to see a slow transition of power from Gregory to Maggie. So the second half of season 7 is not just to rise or the march to war, but it's also the rise of Maggie Rhee, the leader of the hilltop.